So as a reminder again, please mute yourself if you're not speaking to avoid disturbing background noises. If you want to speak, raise your hand and unmute yourself. Please use the chat only for study group session questions. Use headphones if you can improve your sound. Please do not type when your microphone is on. The session will be recorded for future study purposes. The videos will be made available to the public on the UAI YouTube channel. Turn off your camera if you do not like your image being used for records, and ask to speak off record if you want what you say not to be part of the video, and we'll edit it out later. So today Guy Perron will guide us in our study about the inner life, segment 1, going inward and upward. Thank you, dear Guy, for your willingness to serve and help us in this study.
You're welcome.
It's up to you now.
Okay. Well, as some might know, I'm quite involved in the UBIS, which is a Urantia Book Internet School. And that school has been around for 19 years now. It started in 1998. And obviously there were a few hundred classes that were facilitated over the years. And even though we're not really in contact like we are on Zoom, it's pretty amazing what we can experience together. I think Rodin explained that very well when he talks about the union of our soul. When we really make the effort to listen to the other one and really looking for what the spiritual pearl they can share with us. And we all know that we all have our personal religion. I was walking with Richard Keeler at the Parliament of World Religion, and he looked at me and he said, Guy, how many religion there is on the planet? And I say, probably 7 billion or something like that. And he started laughing because it's, hey, that's interesting. I had exactly the same number. We know that ultimately religion is a personal relationship with our Father. And the question is for us that are really living that earthly life, and our activities is mainly in the outside world, and we react a lot to external stimuli that are always around us, and it's really a challenge for us to have to go within and to nurture that inner life, and even have one to start with. In fact, most people don't even know what an inner life is and what it consists of. And after talking to many people, I thought, oh, that would be a good class. And how can it be structured? We have a way in the UBIS where we have 4 periods. And each period consists of 2 weeks. So we have a period, the first week is a study, answering questions. And the second week is about sharing. So knowing that it's a topical study and that basically it's all over the Urantia book, it's not like you take, for example, a class on the thought adjuster and you use paper 107, 108, 109, 110. Or when it's a topical study, you go all over the book. And then it was, okay, how can I structure a class on the inner life? And I thought it was interesting to use those 4 adverbs, which is inward, upward, onward, and forward. When you think about it, to go inward for us, it can be a challenge. We all know I wish that all of us have experienced the power of meditation, how even Jesus was meditating a lot. And he had something to meditation that is a little bit different from what the Eastern philosophy talks about. It's not only about calming the mind or focusing the mind on one element, but it's about a worshipful meditation. So you're calming the mind in order to connect with God and to connect with God within. And in order to connect with God within, well, you can try with visualization, you can try with music, meditation, and all that. Ultimately, you will find that the best way to do it is to be in silence and stillness. You know, we can have a meditation when we walk in the forest and it's beautiful, and that beauty really touch you and touch your soul. But when you really want to connect with God, you know, all of us have different practice. I don't know how many, I have a book called 50 Practice of Meditation, so I guess there's probably a few hundred of them. I think the most important thing is to find the one that is work with or work for us and calm our mind, and we feel that presence within us, and we feel we connect with that presence within. And when we go upward, it's to connect with God that is within us. This is the Urantia Book, or some of us call it the incomparable teaching of the Urantia Book, is really guiding us to that inner life. And all Jesus' life is connecting us with that too. And that this inner life is all about going from inside out. You start within, and then you can go do something without. We know how we react to external stimuli. Sometimes we don't like what we hear in the news, or, you know, traffic or things like that. And we become pretty reactive to many things. And nowadays, we have stimuli constantly with us. Do you know that one? It's pretty amazing, because 10 years ago, we were looking for us, working at getting wiser, and we were looking at kids using their telephone, and we were criticizing, oh, look at that, they're always on their phone and all that. But what's really interesting now is that even when I'm at the Urantia Foundation, everybody's on his phone and tablet and computer. And we're not little young people. We're all in our 60s and up. So this invasion of electronic can be a good tool, but can be a big obstacle to our inner life. So when we meditate, worship, it's good not to do it with your phone in your pocket. That's a good way to start. And not, God won't answer you through a text. So it's okay if you put your phone aside for a while. God doesn't text so far. Maybe he will one day, but and he's not on Facebook as well, even though we do good outreach through Facebook. So there's a few questions, and you know, all of us have different way of introducing a subject. Some people like to talk and share their experience for half an hour, and then we can do a question and answer or sharing. My way, we all have a different way, is more about sharing, because again, in Jesus' speech on the discourse of science, he explained that a group that work in coordinate harmony has a power that none of us have individually. And he even compared it to have this achieving the square of our personality. So we can imagine if we're 8 or 9 here, we're becoming 81 or 64. That's pretty powerful. And if we reflect on that, we know that we all have a thought adjuster. We know that thought adjuster work together. They all come from the same place. They're all perfect fragment of our Father. And when we are asked questions like in paper 107, can you really understand the significance of having a divine indweller, a perfect fragment of the Father, of the infinite Father within you? I don't know if we reflect on that. And someone in a study group about 3 weeks ago said, I came to the realization that all God is within me, because the fragment of God is part of God. So when God is within me, that same God is within the other. And for him, it was like quite an epiphany on understanding our oneness. We're all unique, but we're all connected to the one. And obviously through our personality and our thought adjuster, the Urantia books make that very clear, how all that happened. So all these reality about being ascending mortal, like some friends like to call us, is a pretty powerful thing when you start to discover who we really are. And I think that inner life is really to discover who we really are. And when we really know who we are, we can start to really be useful to others. You know, the Greek were saying, know God, know yourself, know thyself. And I think all of us were touched by that at one point or another. Who are we? Where are we coming from? Where are we going? What is the purpose of a life? And what is the purpose of our life? And again, this revelation is amazing to reveal all that, to guide us in discovering the answer to all that. And Jesus' injunction was more, know God and know yourself as a son of God. This is really powerful. It really transcends the injunction of the Greek. Because if you know God first and you discover your sonship with God, everything changed for you. If you come to that place where it really touches you, you can work at actualizing that reality, because we know that for us human being and being experiential being, everything has to be actualized. Even walking, talking, all those things has to be actualized. Nothing is given to us right away. We need to learn how to use it. Same thing with our mind, same thing with so many things. So my question to you, and maybe we can do that, we can do a little moment of silence to start with. And if one is moved to do a prayer to start our group, then so be it. That's what we do in our study group. In our working group, we always do a moment of silence. And we really make the effort, each of us, to connect within. Because then that union of our soul is really possible. And I just did a all day workshop today, and for 8 hours, people just left. And how did we start? By a moment of silence and prayer. And telling them, where are you right now? Are you in your mind thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow? Or can we live that experience together? And can we be free of all these things for a few hours? And, you know, then you can leave here being charged and feeling that you have the vitality to do, because we know that God is the giver of everything. God is not only spirit, he is energy as well. So if we learn to connect to the source, knowing that that source has been individualized in all of us by the fragment of God indwelling us, this is pretty powerful. So if you're all in agreement, I would suggest that we do a little moment of silence, connect with God within, bring us back here, and then we can start our sharing and discovering a little bit more by benefiting from the spiritual pearls of each person here about what is an inner life and what it is for us and how can we cultivate that. If one is moved to do a short prayer, so be it. Don't forget to unmute yourself. So we'll take a couple of minutes. You know, the best way to connect with God is through breath. Any life is start with the first breath, and any physical life end with the last breath. So let's breathe a little bit and then connect with God within, and then we'll start our webinar. Thank you, Father. Thank you for all the blessing you bestow on us each day. Thank you for this amazing gift of personality. We'll use all the way in eternity. Thank you for the presence, your presence within each of us, giving us access to all the wisdom that is necessary to realize that personality and to build our soul and nurture it so it can expand and ultimately fuse with our personality. Thank you for bringing us together today, and thank you for the gift of the inner life, where we can feel and perceive you within, perceive and feel all the love, the joy, the peace, and all those fruits of the Spirit, so we can manifest all of them in unselfish service. Thank you for guiding us today so we can have deeper insight on the inner life, and now we can practice it, can nurture it, practice it, and live a better life from inside out. So be it. Okay, well, our first segment is to go within, to go inward and upward. So, did you feel you were going inward, and did you feel you were going upward? We thought some of you fused already because you were not on the screen anymore.
If I may speak,
Sure, go ahead.
The thing that always is remarkable to me is that it's not what I experience in my efforts to go into the inner life. It's what I experience in the rest of my life as a result of having done so. If I go into meditation looking for something, I am almost certain not to find it. So many years ago, there was a letting go. Maybe not a complete letting go, because I still I still wish that Father would make himself a little more demonstrably manifest sometimes. But what I do is go in with the faith that he's there, and in experiencing that the Father is there, I also get to experience where I am, and that is generally it's pretty clear that my mind is not a very well coordinated entity. It goes all over the place. I have to constantly bring it back to center, and yet, despite that experience looking like how Ross Perot once described making legislation as being like being in the midst of a sausage factory, it's not pretty. And I regard my meditation, not all the time, but much of the time on my own, as simply the exercise of recommitting, of making my recommitment manifest. And what ends up happening is that in the outer life, my intentions and my actions tend to be more in the direction that I know that my Father would want them to be. Nothing is perfect, of course, but it's better than it would be otherwise. the better example I have is what happens if, for any reason, something thwarts the practice or gets in the way. So that if, for some reason, I've had to curtail my morning meditation, or have not gotten to have that same time that I've made sure to have with the Father that day, things do not work out as well in my day. And by the end of the day, I'm noticing I'm different than I normally am. And what's normal is that I don't go completely off the beam or egocentric anymore the way I might have in my youth. But I find that ego will assert itself more prevalently in those rare instances where I've had a day that I didn't meditate. And what that does for me is it says, Andre, get you to your room and sit down quiet for a little while. And it's not usually some incident that provokes that. It's just at this point now, the inner sense of how off balance I might be that says, I need a little more time. The other thing, and I'll stop, is that this is always shored up if there are service opportunities. If I've had opportunities for dynamic service, things get better. That immediately makes worship much more spontaneous. And if that service can have some element of creativity, and it doesn't have to be artistic creativity, but just an element of unifying contrasts, as the book so wonderfully portrays in The Celestial Artisans. If I'm somehow bringing God into some project, or there's some creative way to be of service to somebody, then all three seem to be functioning a little bit better together.
Well, thank you, Andre. Thank you for that great demonstration of the inner life. You want to talk, Samantha? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that Gilles raised his hand.
Gilles, go ahead, Gilles.
Yeah, so first I wanted to make a couple of comments about your introductory comments that are related to what we are talking about. One is about the electronic distraction and the concept of distraction in the first place that is taking us away from the spiritual work, going inward and all that good thing. Unfortunately, I live it myself. Not so much for the electronic, a little bit, but mostly because of work. And I feel like sometimes work is overwhelming, taxing, and getting on the way. Though it's important, and some of it it has to be done. You know, that's kind of our present life. I definitely let myself, going overboard, and that throws me off balance, the kind of off balance that I think Andre was talking about. And also, unfortunately, I see through my kids, and I'm like, it's a very great despair that I see them way on too much electronics. And don't get me started on why I let that happen, because if it was up to me, I would not let that happen at all. But the bottom line is, I see it in my kids, I see it in the generation, the young generation, and that's definitely a bad thing, because I can see it's so clear to me that it's taking away from just being with oneself, which is important. This brings to the second comment that I wanted to make, is about the stillness that Guy, you talked about, that I hear a lot of people talking about, and Jesus practiced and all that, and I do have experience about that. But the thing that to me works best, when I go into stillness just like that, and just try to just quiet my mind, because it's thinking about things, and I'm saying, well, you shouldn't be thinking about that. You should be, worshiping God, and you should be listening to God. So shut up, mind, kind of thing. to me is maybe I don't have the right technique, but that's not the way it works best for me. What seemed to have worked best so far, at least in my personal experience, and no pretension that that's the best way, is actually when I have something on my mind, which is pretty much all the time, because even in the best periods of my life, I at least think about what is the next step, and was also thinking about something and what I'm going to do and why and what's the meaning and all that. So there is always something to think about. And then when you get involved with other people, there are always troubles. So there are a lot of things to think about that are worth thinking about in our lives. Well, what I found best is actually to first start processing all that is on my mind. And I'm not talking about, what the color of shirt I'm going to wear tomorrow. I'm talking about the real question in life that have to do with meanings and the why, and ultimately lead to decision making, important decisions in your life, or how you're going to deal with people or with certain problems, and the stillness that I experience after really giving it my best, which sometimes takes several hours. The longest that it took me is a period probably of 2 weeks, where I spent 2 weeks when I was a student, where I pretty much spent my day thinking, or most part of my days, and I were into cycles of thinking really hard, and then that moment of letting go. It's like I'm hitting a wall, I'm exhausted, and then it's like a bit of, if you run the best you can, like you do a sprint as long as you can, and then you stop and you are dead tired. Kind of the same thing. And there, that stillness that happens is so natural. And then there are some things that I feel happen in terms of getting some intuitions. And many times, particularly way back then, like it would happen even best overnight. Like in the morning, things were so much clearer. So that's the point. Is the thinking about before the stillness in my personal experience. The third point I wanted to bring while I'm at it, if I don't take too much time, you can stop me and I can make perhaps those points later if someone else is eager to talk. When we talk about the love of God and worship and all that, that's one of the things that I've thought a lot, because it's not obvious to me, all that. To me, I feel it much better in the experience. Loving God and feeling being loved by God and all that. When I just like that, thinking about it, okay, maybe, well, sure. But when I'm really confronted to some tough experiences, and tough or beautiful experiences, usually the tough one lead to beautiful ones, and there is really a sense of perhaps helping someone, or being pushed in terms of doing something different. And then in those moments, this is where, to me at least, I could feel, like when I had a glimpse of the meaning of that, get a little sense of that. This is in those moments that these are the strongest moments of love, loving people through experience, and through that experience. And the best experience for that is really having kids. And the way I love my kids is to me a great demonstration of how God loves us, and probably 1,000,000 times more, or infinitely more. So here is this is the concept of experiencing those in the experience, not so much in being still for like hours and hours and trying to ask a question and waiting for the answer, or feeling those things. Well, I guess I could talk about the inward and the upward, but I think I've spoken for a long time, so perhaps I will talk about it later. So that's all for now.
Thank you, Gilles. Well, let's welcome Pius and Eugene, who turned his name into Moses, maybe because he's the Filipino Moses. So welcome to this webinar. We're talking about the inner life, and the first segment, the second one will be next week. We talk about going inward and upward. We just did few moments of silence and a little worship. And the question was, how do you experience it? How do you felt it? Andre made a comment, Jill made one, and whoever wants to make another comment, please do so, how you experience the inner life. Ed?
Many years ago, I read a book, or I heard a song by an author, a singer-songwriter. His name was Karen Kane. And he wrote this song, The Man in Me. And he goes along, he's singing this, and he's trying to get that man to shut up. He says, shut up, shut up, shut up. And I find sometimes when I'm into my meditation or trying to go into meditation, I got to get this person in there to shut up. And so it's an idea about controlling our subconscious, where we dominate it or whatever we do, to go into that moment where we're not thinking about anything in this meditating period. And that's always been my biggest problem in my forms of meditation. And I'm just throwing that out there because I'm hoping maybe other people have a little problem getting that voice in there to shut up, so you can get into your meditation period. And that's my thought for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that's pretty drastic. Shut up. That's quite an injunction. Thank you for sharing. Samantha?
Well, I understand what Ed is saying, because my personal experience is if I don't do worship regularly, then it's too much talk. Too much thinking, and trying to keep the brain quiet is very complicated if you don't have some form of regularity in your, and like Andre said, when you do have periods, as I have, unfortunately I'm not very disciplined in that sense. You have periods when you do it less and you immediately sense the effect in your daily life and the way you react to situation. My personal experience is that I'm much more emotional in reaction to certain things, and much more difficulties in taking distance and looking upwards, down instead, downwards, up. So yeah, for me personally, it comes down to being disciplined and having regular worship. As soon as I have a period where I don't do it, or much less, immediately have the effect, both inside my head and outward. So that's my experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Very true. Anyone else want to share? You know, we have Gard and I were sharing a lot about the inner life, and we called it our divine appointment. Do you respect your divine appointment? And I don't know if you remember, there was an advertising about maybe 10 or 20 years ago. It was American Express, and they were saying, don't leave home without it. So we came to the conclusion that divine appointment, don't leave home without it. Okay, anyone would like to? Yeah, go ahead, Gaetan.
Well, many thoughts expressed here, I think, are in some way universal. I mean, everyone experienced in some way the difficulty of quieting the mind. And many years ago, I started using meditation as a way to quiet my mind. So I use one of those Buddhism methods. And I remember the teacher telling us that the Hindu, I mean the people from India, had less problem calming their mind than the people from the Occident, you know, the white people. And I was impressed by this thing. You know, I was wondering, what is it? Nothing is going on in their mind, you know. And maybe it has some truth in it. In the Urantia Book, it tells us that the admixture of many races have produced maybe a different problem, or you know, maybe some quickening of the mind. You know, we're very creative with our mind. So when I came to meditation many years ago, was not only to calm my mind, but try to find that inner peace. And I think every one of us wants to find that inner peace, because with this very active life that we have today, like you were mentioning at the beginning, computer and telephone and tablet and more and more we are invited to use these things, you know, to be distracted from that inner life. So we're outward going instead of inward going. And if we don't use those means that are available to us, natural mean like Jesus did, because in the life of Jesus, he always used natural mean of quieting his mind and reaching out to God, reaching upward to God. But for myself, my own realization is that if I would not use meditation every day for so many years, I would have lost myself. And I would have devoted myself mostly to materialistic thing. Because, you know, you need that contact. It's like a friend, you know, you're talking about taking this rendezvous every day with God within us. Well, if you don't take this rendezvous, how are you going to know of him? You know, how are you going to become like him? It's like God needs to be a friend with us, a friend that we want to meet every day and share with him our every moment of our life and learn from him how we can improve ourselves. And well, of course, he's not talking to us, you know, like someone would talk to us. But when we reach in, I found out that after practice, you know, in the Urantia Book tell us that the more we practice something, the more it becomes an habit. And if we do a good meditation practice, if we find the right one that suits us, and we do it regularly, it becomes like an habit, you know. It's easier for the mind to calm itself. And for myself, I always start with a prayer. But before I start with a prayer, I start with a practice of breathing. Like you say, breathe is the thing that we start doing when we become alive. And it's the last thing we do. So I always focus on my breathing, focus to relax my body. It has become a practice. And after a while, I don't have to think about it. I do it automatically. And then I start with a prayer, because I found out that doing a prayer of thanksgiving, it's easier for me then to go in and have a talk with my Father, just like I have a talk with you sometimes, Guy. And then I can talk with him and just sit sometime in silence and see what comes up in my mind. And sometimes those thoughts don't come up in my mind right away like thought, but sometimes later on in the day, like Andre said, during the day, things come out, you know, impression or intuition or spiritual insight comes in to whatever I want to do. And God is more present, because I found out that the more I get in touch with God every day, the more he is present in every second of my life. And if I miss that rendezvous in the morning for some, you know, for any kind of reason, sometimes, you know, we get to be called with my business, I get to go up and I have to go back and sit down. If I miss that time, I know I'm missing something. It's like I'm missing breakfast. So for me, you know, like my father used to say, we have three bodies, a physical, a mindful body, and a spiritual body. If we miss a meal for one of those, well, they're going to be lacking something, some energy. And it's like so much Jesus has said about, or Rodin said about Jesus meditation. You know, Jesus was always finding a lot of energy and a lot of spiritual power by going in to find the source of all things, energy, insights, spiritual life, and share that with the Father, and he will give back what we need. And a little bit like Samantha said, sometimes or Ed said, you know, shut up, you know, we might say. I've experienced that when in the turmoil of a lot of anxiety, and, you know, because I went through a bad period in my life of having panic attack, and I know what these can do to the mind. And sometimes I had to affirm myself and say out loud, stop, you know, shut up. It's not you, you know, it's not me that wants this. It's not me, it's my ego that's trying to control what I want. And it's hard to let when you're that period of time in your life, to regain control. But if we go through meditation and pray to our Father, it becomes a lot easier to do so. And if we persist in doing this, we truly can come in contact with God that is within us. We truly, each one of us in different ways. I mean, we have different experience because we perceive things differently according to our own experience or personality. It comes a time where we'll have that true sense of not seeing, but, well, I could almost see with our mind that God is there within us, just waiting for that moment when one day we will fuse. So that these are great moments, and everyone can do that as long as we're sincere in wanting to achieve this state of mind. And like you say, I think the first thing we need to do is, if we're not already done that, is be born of the Spirit. But it's not only a fact of being born of the Spirit. Once we are born of the Spirit, we just enter into the kingdom. There's still a lot of work to be done. And to manifest the fruit of the Spirit in true loving service, this is our task. This is how we become the light of this world, and people will be attracted to us, not before. Thank you.
Thank you, Gaetan. Yes, very true. There's in paper 108, it's pretty powerful in section 5 when they talk how the thought adjuster works within us. And then he says he's not there to how you say, pamper your pride or your injured pride, and he's not there to change your emotion of sadness into joy. This is your task. And when we do that task, then we give the lever where the thought adjuster can work. So thank you for reminding us that this is a daily thing. Life is one day's work. If we do it best, then the acts are ours and the consequences are God's. And I think one of the first place we see that is really in worship. The act is ours. It's to us to go into worship. And then we see the consequences are really God, because all our life unfold a lot of time in a beautiful way. And even if we're a seasoned worshiper and we worship a lot, it's pretty amazing, as you all said, that if I worship an hour per day in the morning, but if I worship 20 minutes, I see the difference. I have to go back to it at one point. And I know when I start the day, if I need to get out, I'm not an early riser, but if I have something at 8 in the morning, I will wake up 2 hours in advance just to have that worship. Make sure that I never leave home without it. So thank you for reminding all of us. Belen, Pio, Eugene, Jeannie, would you like to share something? Go ahead, Belen.
Yes, inner life is very important because to me, I'm a senior, but the inner life, I think I was trying to practice that because I was raised Catholic and we were taught to pray. So in what form, I don't know, but it kind of helped me up to this later part of my life. And I'm so thankful that we have the Urantia book to guide us. It opens a lot of wisdom and revelations, just taught us how to live like how our Master Jesus lived in this earth. So today is perfect. We have this seminar or workshops, and dealing with teaching and leadership according to the Urantia book, because it brings back also the need for us who wants to be facilitators, at the same time students, for our brothers and sisters in the Philippines who are much also interested about the Urantia book revelations. So our Union of Souls this morning is perfect. I really very happy and thankful that this happens. And to our thought adjusters who are within us, each one of us, our thought adjuster have the same origin, nature, and destiny. And therefore, I always think of that because the presence is very important to carry on my daily life in this world, full of external stimulus. But the inner life is something to be grounded, and it helps me calibrate and be centered on what is really to be done. So, and more experiences, and I'm listening to experiences of each one, and it's very true. It's very true. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Belen, to remind us about that balance between the inner life and the outer life. If we only live outside, like Gaetan pointed out earlier, we're just like a bubble ready to explode. And if we don't counterbalance that, it's really interesting when we talk to certain people, say, oh, I love God so much. And well, when you love someone, you like to spend time with them. Isn't that normal? And how can we spend time with God? I think we can spend time with Him all the time, but we need to start somewhere. What a great way to start our day with that. Eugene, Eve, label as Agnès for tonight. Do you have anything you would like to add? And Jeannie? Yves, il faut que tu enlèves le mute. Oui.
That's it. Okay, I'm stepping in this little meeting from Belgium, close to Guy. We're happy to see you all. And for your information, I followed the previous study group on the inner life on the French UBIS. And all that, the testimony you gave us are precious. The meeting with our inner father daily or weekly or whatever is obviously precious, and everybody has its own way to be related to the adjuster, and we're trying every day to meet him in the morning or whenever, but all day long it's important to stay focused on our spark of divinity within us. That's what I'm trying to do, but I'm not accomplished yet.
Thank you, Yves.
I did not talk English for a while, so I must train a bit more.
You did that very well. Thank you, Yves. Jeannie, Pio, Eugene, Aka Moses. Go ahead, Jeannie.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure to hear, Andre. What you said, Andre, exactly, every word, I make my own words, because to me it's like your experience is, I would like to have a more consciousness about the work of my father and myself, and I try to worship my father every day of my life. Sometimes my mind do not want to shut up. My mind is in turmoil, and the time of my meditation, of my communion passed, and my mind do not want to calm. It is sometimes I attain short moments, brief moments of communion, and what functions to me more in this communion is first breathe. Breathe is a great help to calm our mind and to give thanks to the Father. And then I just focus my attention. I imagine that my father is up there, and when I focus my attention in his presence, something beautiful happens. It's like a different state of peace, but not every day. And this state of peace do not extend very much. They are brief moments, but when I attain these brief moments, I call the embrace of the soul. I imagine my soul is giving a hug to my father, and it's just so beautiful. It is so, I have no words to describe the happiness and the beautiful feeling, and it's like to enter in a different state of being. I have no words, sorry, to describe this feeling or this sensation or this consciousness, but it is beautiful. Sometimes it's so beautiful that I cry and cry and cry during my communion. And many times I am asking myself, why I do not have more consciousness about my father. I have an inner, I am hungry for this communion, hungry for this consciousness. I understand that it is not in my father the difficult, but in ourselves, in our consciousness, in our human nature, our mind, that is so unsensitive to the presence of the Father. But when during my day, in service, doing my tasks and everything I do, I perceive that something happens, something beautiful. It is like I have energy, I have love, I have more capacity to do whatever I have to do. One thing that happens to me many times, for example, I want to do one task, everything that I need to do. Like try another program to do something different, to serve the revelation. And the first time, I do not understand the program, I do not understand how to do, I have no ideas. Then I abandon the tasks for the moment. And in my prayer and communion during some days, I ask the Father his help to do this. And when I return to do the task, it is amazing. Everything flows. Everything is easy. What I did not understand before, now is clear, clean. It's amazing. It happens every time I have to do something new. I know in my inner, in my personal opinion, I think my father did something that I am not conscious of what he did, but he did something because I have something new that I do not have that capacity before. And it's in my service to the revelation, my contact with my friends and brothers and sisters, I perceive that it is there where is more manifested the work of the Father. But I also I am conscious that without my inner communion, I would not be really capable to do a good work. I recognize that our Father constantly, when we are in communion with Him, in this worship communion, He's feeding our soul, our mind. He's giving us everything we need to serve in a more effective way. And I am so grateful with these sessions, Guy, that you are guiding to us, and all the testimonies that you have gave to us, Andre, and Yves, Gilles, Belen, Gaetan, Samantha. It's so beautiful to hear you expressing the same feelings, the same ideas, and the same experience that I have. So thank you very much.
Well, if you don't have the impulse to worship after Jeannie's sharing, I don't think you will ever have it. It doesn't matter the language, the accent, but boy, is it attractive. Thank you. It is really true that when you feel that presence within, there's no word for it, and you need to feel it a few times to be hooked on it and wanting to repeat it. And practice doesn't make perfect, but perfect practice makes it perfect. And it's repeat, as the our brother Melchizedek repeat, we need to develop those religious habits. And as the Midwayer said in paper 160, we need to do it repeatedly. It's not something that is easy for us because there's so many external stimuli. But if we do it, it's very true, it changes everything. If we do it with God, you know, one thing we forget, and we're going to touch upon that next week about the onward and forward, is sometimes we worship and we really feel that not only that presence, but that love within, and we're all energized to do what we have to do. And in the doing, we forget to do it with God because He's still there with us to do it and to manifest through us, in us and through us to others. So I think Gaetan pointed that out earlier, and it was really good. For us that are material being, especially when we start with our body and our material mind, it seems that it's much easier to have human goals. And a lot of those goals are about having something or adding something to our material life. And I think it's good to have spiritual goals. And sometimes it's not easy to make the goal clear, because if we're not surrounded with mind-like people and people that are worries and have difficulty to worship, and even if you talk to them about that, they think you're a little cuckoo, when in fact you know it's the way to real sanity. It's a good thing to be reminded of what we found within and to really look for it. There is a purpose to worship. It's not just about feeling and this peace that many of you talk about is there. It is available within us. And we're going to read a few quotes on that. But before I like to check with Pio and Eugene if they would like to share something.
Okay.
Hello,
Hello,
Pio.
Guy.
Hello.
This Monday, I was driving up to Vancouver to pick up my custom guitar, and it gave me a good time to drive and then think. And I was turning on to Dr. Wayne Dyer's, talks. And one word that came up among all his talk was, God is also giving and at the same time so impersonal. He knows nothing but love, that there's no evil in God. And so that kind of, so that kind of got me thinking, and the word intention came up on his speech. So your intention has to be positive, and I realized over my 6 decades of life how negative I was, and how as the Belena said, as a Catholic, lifelong Catholic, my idea of worship was, the incense and, oh God, and very Jewish, ritual. Catholic is very Jewish, if you go to a synagogue, all their liturgy is just like the Catholic Mass, Oremus and all that. So that was my concept of worship. So it was all this, very verbal and very outward, expressive and whatnot. But I realized that the word intention. So this morning, as Ed says, shut up, shut up, shut up. Instead of telling myself to shut up, from last night I said, I had an ISP meeting at 8 o'clock. I'm not an early riser myself, Guy. But I said, my intention is to get up very early, brew my Kona coffee, and be ready, nice and fresh, for Guy's workshop with Ginny, and to attend the ISP. And even without the alarm, my eyes opened up at 6:30. And my other intention was, as I was going through the hour-long ISP meeting, I checked with Susan Owens, and I realized that there was a conflict, so I excused myself to attend this. So what I'm saying is very good to camaraderie with the people, brothers and sisters here in the ISP group with the same goal. And for me, this is a learning process for me to, at this late age, to learn proper leadership, to do God's mission as Jesus is spreading the gospel. So I may be all over the place, but events are calming me down. I was a very angry person. I was in management all my life. So I'm the fixer-up guy. I fix this and I fix that. But now, in my 6th decade of life, it's never too late. And we call ourselves seniors, but as I brought up on the previous meeting, God is extending our life. And according to the United Nations lifespan, age 65 to 85 is prime now. So, we are in our prime, as far as I'm concerned. And Samantha is a teenager.
At least from the spiritual point of view, yeah.
No. Spiritual, she's my grandmother.
Oh, okay.
Physical, she's a teenager. So I'm very happy to share this and listen to this, and Andre's quote and Samantha's quote as I'm reading this. I'm washing my brain out of all the worldly worries, and this is a very refreshing course. And as I've been attending this meeting, even though I was late a couple of times, I want to thank you, Guy, for your service, Jeannie, and everybody, and all of your beautiful attendance here. Thank you.
Thank you, Pio. You're welcome. This is good. I think a lot of us have heard about brainwash, and in many ways, this should be welcome, especially if it's God washing it. And it's really interesting. I'm sure you faced that a couple of times in meeting. I remember one of my first study group in 2000. A woman came by our place. She was reading the book, a page here, a page there. And she was sitting at the table, and she was really annoyed by the fact she had a thought adjuster. And how come there's someone within me that is adjusting my thought? I don't like that. And so we look at her, and I was with Sir Joseph, and who was a long-time reader. I was just a new reader. And we said, okay, we're gonna address that. And for 2 hours, we read quotes and all that. And by the end of the meeting, she was pretty happy to have a thought adjuster. It was really a shift in her point of view, by benefiting from that union of our soul. And when she left, maybe a few of you know me, but I like to use humor. So she was leaving, and I said, you know what? Your thought adjuster can be your thought controller. And she said, I'm not ready for that. So it was pretty good. And as Pio said, you know, our thought adjuster, obviously, if we turn to God and we're wholehearted, can become our thought controller. They say usually around the age of 60. Many of us thought it was 40, but it is more like 60. And personally, I felt the difference after I got in my 60s, that there was that inner peace was more readily available, and there was something. And as you say, Pio, for sure it's never too late. We're all embryos, eternal embryo. You know, in paper 112, section 5 says, our life is just a breath, a moment in eternity. But in that moment, we need to find God. So that's the amazing cosmic perspective that the revelators are offering to us. Is quite a blessing. And you know, if we don't have time to worship, we need to find the time. Because it's really where, as Gaetan said, we become like the Father. How can we become like someone how can we emulate someone if we're not spending time with them? So Collins, welcome. I know you're in Africa. I think we were in a couple of classes together on the UBIS. So I know sometime our time are quite different. We change time here in America, and I'm in Belgium right now. But I welcome you, and I'm really happy to see a brother from the other side of the world, or I should say from down here. And it's quite a blessing to see that we can transcend the limits with God, and that we really become international, and it's a good thing. And I'm pretty amazed. Many times we have African with us in study group on Zoom, and there is no difference between us at all. There is nothing that separates us from our color, our gender, none of that. And this is really how many of you have talked about. It's an effect of our inner life that really transcend all these labeling that we do when we don't have that inner life. So Collins, if you have something to share, and I know Moses has been quiet, but who knows, he might bring us the 10 new commandments soon.
All right, Guy Perron, thank you for the welcome. And it's a pleasure seeing all of you. Like you said, we've met on a couple of platforms at UBIS, and it was such a very interesting platform where we shared our thoughts and the lessons that we learned from the Urantia Book. I saw this session, this training session on the internet a couple of times. I thought it was for specific people, so I didn't actually plan to participate, but it was just a couple of days back when I talked with Louis, and then he actually said, I could actually join. So today I went to town, I just came, I thought I was actually late, so I just logged on and hey, I'm here, and it's good to be here. It's good to, just like you said, in the Urantia Book, I find out that indeed when we meet from different races, from different parts of the world, if you have definitely read the Urantia Book and you're committed to its teachings and revelations, you find out that there's no difference with any other person that you meet, you know, whether it's an African, an Asian, an European, everywhere. So it is indeed a unique book, and I'm also happy that in the African terrain, it's beginning to take on a new level. Recently, we're trying to reach so many African readers, little groups, groups that have been meeting for quite some time, but they have not actually shown up on the international level. But we all know that times are changing. Sometimes you can't afford reading on your own or as a small group forever. Very soon you would have to come up, especially when you want to share the book with your fellows, especially those around you. And for us in Africa, we're really excited. We really want to know how best we can reach our people. We know there's so many issues here, especially with religion, with faith, with the economy and everything. But you know, the challenge makes it exciting. So getting the opportunity to be in sessions like this and to learn from all of you, to hear of your experiences and to see which new ways and new methods to be applied, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad.
We're glad you're here, Collins, and what a blessing it is for us. We're learning from you. You know, I went to Gaïda in Senegal in 2002. We spent almost a month there, and we were profoundly moved by how natural it was for African to God was natural to them, and that's the way it should be all over the world. There's no problem talking about God, bringing that in any conversation. We were really moved by that humility that makes us teachable. And where are you, Collins? Which country?
Yeah, I'm in Ghana. I'm in Accra.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
at the moment. Yeah.
Okay. You want to talk, Pio? Go ahead.
Collins, welcome. I remember Ghana very fondly because when I first was given the Urantia book was when I attended the World Cup match opening ceremony game in 2002 in Seoul, Korea. And as I was watching from a VIP box, Ghana was playing France. And France was so confident that they were going to win, but Ghana won. And what an experience that was, eh?
Sports is good, as long as you don't kill yourself doing it. Collins, we're sharing about the inner life. Would you have any comment where we talk quite lengthily on worshiping and how difficult it can be to calm the mind or to find time to spend with the Father, and how important it is to respect those divine appointments? If you have any comments, please go ahead.
Yeah, I can identify with that, especially when I can say for my spiritual journey so far. I remember just about a month ago in a study group in Ghana, in Accra, when I mean, in the study group, in the Urantia study group, everybody knows me to be Collins Urantia book reader, but not many people knew of my background. I mean, how I ended up in the Urantia group or movement. So when I mentioned that my background is actually, I was and a very devoted, pious one, and I went to church, I paid tithe, I prayed, I fasted, I spoke in tongues and all those things. I mean, someone was just looking at me like that, like, wow, you did all that. And then when I added, in fact, my father is actually an ordained minister, a reverend, a pastor. They were like, then how did you end up here, you know? And I'm like, yeah, because I started questioning a lot of things within me, even when I was a Christian, I would say a fully devoted Christian. A lot of things didn't make sense to me because I believe what we're saying, that even no matter what religion teaches a person, there's that inner voice. There is always that part of you that says, you know, I can take this because perhaps you're my spiritual leader, but something within me still tells me this is not what I really want to be. So there's always that inner drive, and that inner drive in me kept going. I didn't know where I would end. In actual fact, I didn't even know that I would end up with the Urantia book. But it just got to a point in my life that I said, I really want to search who really is, who he actually is. No matter whether I'm going to find him still in the church that I am or in another faith, I'm just going to search out for him. And when I found the Urantia book, I'm like, oh yes, all this that I'm learning, all this that I'm reading about resonates, you know, within me. It rings the truth bells. And it even put me on another level whereby I say, you know what, I love the Urantia book. I want to do everything with it, but I don't think I want to stay with it forever. I think there may be something even bigger than that. I don't know how, but for a start, or at this point in my life, it is a good message. It is something that I can work on. And every day I seem to improve upon it. I don't talk like you're saying, I don't bow down so much to pray every day. But inwardly, I ask God every day, what should I do? When I'm even confronted with a very difficult situation, it may even be economic, family, friends, I say, what should I do? I don't have time to pray in the morning. I don't have time to bow down to you. I don't have time to read or what. Even the Urantia book, I don't read it as often as I used to. You know, it was just like the Bible. Once you read from cover to cover, and maybe you read it for a second time again, sometimes you just feel like you've had so much of it, enough of it. What else am I going to read from the Urantia book that is going to change how I see life? So there isn't so much motivation to go back to the formalized way of worship, reading, praying, doing all those stuff. But now it's more about God lead me on, even on the daily life, even in my struggles, even in everything. That is where, for me, internal worship or the inward worship actually all works out.
Thank you. Thank you. Eugene, would you like to share? Okay. Well, let's...
Gilles has raised his hand.
Okay, go ahead, Eugene.
Gilles.
Yeah, no, I actually wanted to ask a question. A lot of you have talked about the worship session as an appointment with God, as a stillness practice. Some of you mentioned that it has to do the first thing in the morning, otherwise your day is completely off, or could be off, or not as good as when you do it. Guy Perron spoke for a long time, about his experience, how important it was, and so on and so forth. So my question to you is, I'm a bit perplexed on that one. Is you talk about that appointment. When you go on your life after that stillness sessions, are you leaving God home, or are you bringing with you? And if you bring with you, what kind of experience do you have with your spirit, indwelling spirit, in the fire of your daily life, compared to your quiet session of stillness when you have that appointment and that worship session I hear you are referring to? So that's my question.
Well, that's a very good question. Let's see if anyone wants to answer or share their experience about that. Go ahead, Samantha.
If you could just repeat the question, because I didn't understand the question completely.
The question is, what is the difference between that appointment that you have in your worship session, in your stillness, that typically I hear from many of you happens in the morning, versus what happens during the day? When you go in your daily life, is it like you are completely off that communion, that communication, that worship, that prayer, or can you be connected? And if so, if you are connected, what's the difference between the fire of the action versus that worship session?
Okay, Belen?
I would like to share how what is the divine appointment. To me, the divine appointment is the consciousness or the recognition of the divine presence throughout our whole life, every day, every minute, every second. So the divine appointment to me is that recognition or the acceptance that the divine presence, very conscious of that divine presence in me because of our thought digester. So that helped me focus towards the destiny that what actually is the thought adjuster is to help us, or the divine appointment is to help us in our temporal life, at the same time moves us to the goal of our eternal career. That's how I interpret the divine appointments. That's all.
Well, Gaetan wants to speak and Ed. So, Gaetan, you go and then Ed.
Guy was muted. I think he wanted to say something.
No, I was just saying, go ahead, Gaetan.
Well, but I think Samantha wanted to say something first. She left her.
Oh no,
hand.
you guys go ahead. I'll wait.
Okay. Well, for me, it doesn't always have to be a morning thing. You know, I do meditate every morning. I do worship every morning. But I found out that many times worship can happen in the afternoon, depending on my state of mind, and mostly during the night, the middle of the night. When I'm alone, I sit outside, looking at the stars, looking at the moon, the shadow of the moon within the trees. And that for me just is a Kickstarter, you know. It just, I can go right in, you know, and then I'm really in touch with God at that time, you know. I can feel the movement in my mind. But being in worship in the morning, what it does to me is that it keeps me more and more in contact every hour of my life. Even while I'm driving, I'm thinking about God, you know, how can I be a better driver? But my mind is always filled with God. There's always a discussion. And at one time, I remember many, many years ago, and I noticed that I was always speaking to the Father, you know, always Father, you know, just speaking like to a friend. And one day I realized, I said, geez, you must be fed up to hear me all the time. I'm like a kid, you know, always talking. And I say, well, I better listen. Maybe he wants to say something to me, but I'm always talking. So I understood at that time that we need time where we can quiet the mind. And sometimes I find these moments where my mind is quite still. And I can share maybe with you one experience I've had many, many years ago during an afternoon. And like he said, you know, sometimes when we are in nature, it's easier to be in worship because we see all that beauty. And I remember one year I was going to Magdalene Island in Quebec, which is a beautiful place in the Gulf of St. Lawrence. And I remember saying to myself, when I get there, I'm going to sit on those big hills and meditate. You know, that was my goals, you know. So I got there one afternoon, it was in June, and I sat on that big greeny hill overlooking the sea and the other island. And I was just, you know, sat down and quiet my mind with the breathing exercise. And then when I opened my mind 20 minutes later, you know, because I was practicing what they call transcendental meditation. And when I opened my mind and I look at all that beauty, and my first thought was about God. And I was thinking about worshiping, you know, because I had read the Urantia Book, and I was asking myself, how do I worship, you know? How is it done, you know? And what can I offer God? You know, that's the second thought that came in. And then, you know, there's not much I could offer God at that time, except I told him inside of me, well, I share with you what I see. I share with you what I hear as the sound of the sea. I share with you the beauty of surrounding me. I share with you the feeling of the wind on my skin. I share with you the scent of the sea, you know, the salty. And I really was in that state of mind that I let him take all of my body to feel what he had created. And that's just that moment, it's like my mind was uplifted. It was a truly glorious feeling for me. And even today, when I think about it, I still have feeling. And I say, you know, sometimes we can worship and offer God to do his will, but sometimes we can share with him everything that we are, that we feel, that we see, that we perceive, that we think, without any thought of retribution, you know, any thought of having something back. And for me, it was truly a moment of worship at that time. I was not asking anything. And I think if we do that regularly, if we go in nature like Jesus did, and we be in touch with that beauty, it elevates the mind. Mm-hmm. And it can enhance some perception, you know, and it can enhance our way of intention, offering to God everything that we are, even our pain, even our suffering, even our you know, crazy thing that we have in our mind. You know, this is who I am. You know, I cannot offer to you what I'm not, but I can offer you what I want to become. And this is the intention, the power of intention. And we know what we want to become. You know, we know that we want to become better human being. We know we want to help the other, you know, become better human being. And I think that those intentions is what carry us forward. And I think God can enhance those intentions within us. So all through the day, you know, even when I travel, I'm always asking myself, you know, consciously, why am I doing this? You know, and that same thought comes to my mind because I want to help the world become a better place. I want to become also, by serving others, a better person. And when we share that with God, well, what else, you know? How else can you worship? You know, there's many other ways, but, you know, this is my way. And this is why worshiping regularly brings to my mind this constant presence of God, to which I share my life with. But if I don't meet him every day at a regular hour, which is easier to do when you have habits. We're a creature of habits. So, you know, when we do that, it's easier when it is an habit than when you have to, oh, geez, I'm going to have to do that at 3, then the next day at 4, then, you know, then you might not, you know, create that habit that it's an economy. It saves energy by creating habits. That's what I teach to people, you know, that once you learn a good technique of breathing to calm your mind, after a while it becomes an habit. It's easier. The body just go in right away. It doesn't take half an hour for me to quiet my mind anymore. And I found out that I have less of those scenarios going in my mind. And I found out, even lately, I told someone, you know, I noticed that for quite a lot of time now, I don't have those thoughts invading my mind. My mind is more controlled now. That's what meditation does. That's what worship does. The more we do it, the more we're in control, just like Jesus. Anyway, that's my thought.
Thank you, Gaetan. Another one would like to answer to Jill. Go ahead, Samantha.
Well, you know, what is doing the will of the Father? You know, it's be you perfect as I am perfect on our level. How do we get there? Well, it's different for every person. Some might need to do worship every day. Others will do just fine with 2 or 3 times, or maybe 1 time a week. I know I'm somebody I have to do it more regularly. But how do you become perfect on your level? How do you accomplish having the fruits of the Spirit, understanding supreme values, truth, beauty, and goodness, having unity of personality? This is not something we can do on our own with just our animal mind. So how do you do that? Through worship, through contact with, you know, silent connection with God. And I think that most of us, and it is one of the most important things we should do, even the book says so, is worship. How often you do it or how long, that's just completely personal. But that is the only way to surpass your animal mind and side and emotions, like Gaetan said, and all the others. Is it brings peace of mind, it brings balance. Your reactions to daily situations and your environments are completely different. And, you know, I know personally that I sense a great difference when I do it or don't do it. And then, like Gaetan says, it comes back to, you know, doing it regularly and having it become a habit. And that's not my strong suit yet, so I'm still working on it. But yeah, that's how I see worship, and that, well, the book says worship is, and how important that is. And after that, it's up to the individual to see how often and how long they need it, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other answer? Jeannie, and Pio after.
I would like just to make a comment about what happens when we worship the Father. Worship is like open the door of your being, all your self, to the work of the Father in ourselves. Worship is the most elevated way to allow the Father transform ourselves. He really make changes in ourselves when we worship Him, because in this inner silence, with our full acceptance of His will, it means that He can work in a special way that it is not possible to do if you are not focusing our inner self in His presence. It's a silent but full of attention. This is why the Revelation says, in worship we do not ask and do not expect to receive anything, because it is important to have the doors of ourselves fully open to His will, to His work in ourselves. And the importance of doing this on a daily basis is the same reason because we eat every day a physical food to our bodies. It is to grow, not only to be strong, to be fit, to feed ourselves, but to renew energies and to grow. This is the most important thing about worship. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Jeannie. Pio and Ed.
To answer Gil's question, I don't have a specific time for worship. As Jatan says, it could be morning or afternoon. But I've grown a habit. I've taken meditation courses, not through, through some discipline. So I'm an ex-military guy, so I went to the Veterans Hospital, and I went through their PTSD. A lot of Vietnam veterans are there with a lot of anger and whatnot. So I took a year of that, and then also, not daily, like Collins. I do not, the book is really voluminous, so I go to the Sunday study group and get revitalized. But from morning, my daily life is like, even from coffee, as I stir my coffee, I think about the Mother Spirit and the Father Spirit. Thank you. And then, I'm revitalizing my body. And my intention is to always be conscious with God and not to take my mind off of Him, which is not very easy. And that's where meditation comes in. But yesterday, my wife asked me to go and exchange a cucumber because it was mushy. And so I went. I was going to the post office to return something, and I forgot the cucumber. So I went upstairs and grabbed the cucumber, just one cucumber, and I said, "What? What is she asking me to exchange this thing? Just keep it." And then it was raining in Seattle. It always rains there. And I had my dogs, and I was going to the supermarket after the post office, and there was a truck coming. So instead of being patient to let him pass, I made a left turn, and my Mini Cooper went over this curb, bang! And my front tire got flat. So I went to the supermarket, and I exchanged the cucumber, and I had a flat. So I went to the tire shop, luckily two blocks away, and he goes, this tire would have cost you $300. So can I just change one? Because, but you have a Mini Cooper, so you have to change all four. So yesterday, my Christmas budget got blown up. So I'm spending almost $1,000 on exchanging 4 tires, which I didn't really plan on. And I was, I get hot-headed, and I was gonna blame my wife and the cucumber if I didn't have to come down to this, but I said, something in me says, whoa, Pio, didn't you think a while back that your Mini Cooper had 45,000 miles, and now it's about time that you change to new shoes? So I said, be careful what I wish for. So I was, that conversation helped me divert from the cucumber to the $1,000 that I'm spending this afternoon. And he calmed me down and says, you know what? I was thinking of getting new tires, and it's very funny, but I want to thank you for that. And so that's my worship in action. And normally I would go, wow, you stupid idiot, why you have to make, you don't deserve to have a driver's license and everything else. But this is, I believe yesterday, I want to share with you how, as I'm maturing, is helping me to control and calm myself down. And something in me says, instead of getting angry, you were thinking about getting new tires anyway. So this is a good occasion. So I just wanted to share my afternoon cucumber experience. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Pio. And as Jesus said, verily, verily, the conquering oneself is greater than conquering a whole town. And our level of self-mastery is the greatest indicator to our spiritual attainment or spiritual development. And that was a great example of that. And I think that's exactly one of the great consequences of worship. Thank you for sharing that. Ed?
Well, thank you. A couple points here. Pio said between 65 and 85 is your prime. Well, that means in a little over a year from now, I'm out of my prime. I didn't like that. Can't we stretch that maybe to 95? 65 to 95 the prime instead of 85, because I don't want to get out there. But I had something really important to say, but Etan said a lot of it. I will say a little bit. When I'm in these problems, I'm driving along and I got these problems and everything, I remember, or I try to remember to myself, that we have these spirit influences with us. We have our seraphic guardians, and they're always with us. And when we get on the other side, they're going to be with us again. I'm thinking of my decisions now are not just me. I've got these other entities riding with me. And I better, at least try to be civil, because I might have to pay when I get on the inside for making these stupid decisions. But it has calmed me quite a bit to understand that I'm not alone out here in the world. That I have an adjuster, I have the seraphic guardians of destiny, and the Father thinks I'm an important person. I respect that quite a bit. So that's my little ending for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Well, let's do something. We have maybe 12 minutes for before we say goodbye, and we can end up with a comment from each of you, a few seconds, a minute. And I would like to point out a few quotes, and we're gonna read them in one after the other without commenting, but you'll see that it's summarized pretty well what the Urantia revelation is doing to all of us, because it really stays with us. And it gives foods for our thought adjuster to work with. So we'll start with that first one where we talk about habits. And if it's okay with you, I would like to, all of us to do it one after the other. All right. Who wants to read The Soil is Essential for Religious Growth? Anyone? I don't see everybody now because it's on the screen. Okay. Anybody want?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
The soil essential for religious growth presupposes a progressive life of self-realization, the coordination of natural propensities, the exercise of curiosity and the enjoyment of reasonable adventure, the experiencing of feelings of satisfaction, the functioning of the fear stimulus of attention and awareness, the wonder lure, and a normal consciousness of smallness, humility. growth is also predicated on the discovery of selfhood accompanied by self-criticism, conscience. For conscience is really the criticism of oneself by one's own value habits, personal ideals.
Can you read the 2 paragraphs down, 100, 18?
Sure. Religious experience is markedly influenced by physical health, inherited temperament, and social environment. But these temporal conditions do not inhibit inner spiritual progress by a soul dedicated to the doing of the will of the Father in heaven. There are present in all normal mortals certain innate drives toward growth and self-realization which function if they are not specifically inhibited. The certain technique of fostering this constitutive endowment of the potential of spiritual growth is to maintain an attitude of wholehearted devotion to supreme values.
And what a great way to do it in worship. Okay, who wants to read that one? The Divine Spirit, 101:13. Or if Andre is doing such a good job, he can do all of them.
Okay, I'm hired, huh?
Yeah.
Where are we? What's the next one you want to read?
101:13.
101:13. The Divine Spirit makes contact with mortal man, not by feelings or emotions, but in the realm of the highest and most spiritualized thinking. It is your thoughts, not your feelings, that lead you Godward. The divine nature may be perceived only with the eyes of the mind, but the mind that really discerns God, hears the indwelling adjuster, is the pure mind. Without holiness, no man may see the Lord. All such inner and spiritual communion is termed spiritual insight. Such religious experiences result from the impress made upon the mind of man by the combined operations of the adjuster and the spirit of truth, as they function amid and upon the ideas, ideals, insights, and spirit strivings of the evolving sons of God.
Thank you. And again, what a great way to do it in worship. Okay, let's go to 101:10. And we'll read the next 3 paragraphs.
Did you say 101:10?
161:10, sorry, but the greatest.
But the greatest of all methods of problem solving I have learned from Jesus your master, said Rodin. I refer to that which he so consistently practices and which he has so faithfully taught you, the isolation of worshipful meditation. In this habit of Jesus going off so frequently by himself to commune with the Father in heaven is to be found the technique not only of gathering strength and wisdom for the ordinary conflicts of living, but also of appropriating the energy for the solution of the higher problems of a moral and spiritual nature. But even correct methods of solving problems will not compensate for inherent defects of personality or atone for the absence of the hunger and thirst for true righteousness.
2 more.
I am deeply impressed with the custom of Jesus in going apart by himself to engage in these seasons of solitary survey of the problems of living, to seek for new stores of wisdom and energy for meeting the manifold demands of social service, to quicken and deepen the supreme purpose of living by actually subjecting the total personality to the consciousness of contacting with divinity, to grasp for possession of new and better methods of adjusting oneself to the ever-changing situations of living existence, to effect those vital reconstructions and readjustments of one's personal attitudes, which are so essential to enhanced insight into everything worthwhile and real, and to do all of this with an eye singled to the glory of God, to breathe in sincerity your master's favorite prayer, not my will, but yours be done. This worshipful practice of your master brings that relaxation which renews the mind, that illumination which inspires the soul, that courage which enables one bravely to face one's problems, that self-understanding which obliterates debilitating fear, and that consciousness of union with divinity which equips man with the assurance that enables him to dare to be godlike. The relaxation of worship or spiritual communion as practiced by the master relieves tension, removes conflicts, and mightily augments the total resources of the personality. And all this philosophy, plus the gospel of the kingdom, constitutes the new religion as I understand it.
Thank you, Andre. Let's go to this one now. 163.2.
Are you sure someone else doesn't want to read?
Well, you're doing a great job.
Okay, the first paragraph or no?
Second.
Second. When these experiences are frequently repeated, they crystallize into habits, strength-giving and worshipful habits, and such habits eventually formulate themselves into a spiritual character, and such a character is finally recognized by one's fellows as a mature personality. These practices are difficult and time-consuming at first, but when they become habitual, they are at once restful and time-saving. The more complex society becomes, and the more the lures of civilization multiply, the more urgent will become the necessity for God-knowing individuals to form such protective habitual practices designed to conserve and augment their spiritual energies.
Thank you. Let's read 143.2.3.
Verily, verily, I say to you, he who rules his own self is greater than he who captures a city. Self-mastery is the measure of man's moral nature and the indicator of his spiritual development. In the old order, you fasted and prayed. As the new creature of the rebirth of the Spirit, you are taught to believe and rejoice. In the Father's kingdom, you are to become new creatures. Old things are to pass away. Behold, I show you how all things are to become new. And by your love for one another, you are to convince the world that you have passed from bondage to liberty, from death into life everlasting.
Thank you, Andre. Well, I think this is a great moral food for our soul and something to find motivation to worship, hopefully each day and maybe more. All right, let's go around and do a final comment, please. Who want to start? Pio?
Yes. Are you going to do this next week, Guy?
Yes.
I would just like to make an administrative suggestion is that I'm fascinated by this Zoom. So next time on your names, why don't you put down the cities where you guys are so that I love checking out times. I know, you know, better than us, Sidao in Philippines, that's like 3 o'clock in the morning now, right?
Yeah, but she lives in Chicago.
Oh, okay. Then I don't feel sorry for you. But like Gilles Maroy, where are you, Gilles?
I'm presently in Connecticut, US, but at the end of the month, I'll be in France.
Okay. So I was just saying that it would be good for me to know where everybody is at this on this globe in the Urantia.
Okay. Good suggestion. Thank you. Any comment about the session? Let's go around. We'll start with Gaeta. Belen, go ahead.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity for another union of souls. God bless. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Belen. All right, one more.
Well, thank you, Guy. This is a very good session because I think one of our main goals should be the inner life and to change ourselves, to become the change that we want in the world. And that becoming in touch with God. And I think that's the best way of doing it. Thank you.
Very true. Thank you, Gaetan. Thank you for your contribution. Ed?
Thank you, everybody. This is the fastest 2 hours of my week, and for some beautiful reason, it permeates till the next week. And things that everybody's saying today are indelible in my mind, and I want to thank everybody for their insights and their blessings. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Jeannie? Eve?
Just
Go ahead, Jeannie.
thank you, everyone. This session is a jewel in this cycle of workshops. It's beautiful. I have enjoyed very much, very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeannie. Eve, Gilles?
Yes, thank you all of you, and thank you, Samantha, for your contribution on the converser with 4 levels, intellectual, moral, spiritual, and personality, on which worship is effective. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Eve, for being here. Okay, Samantha, Gilles, Andre?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Guy. Love the topic. Thank you for your service, and thank you all for sharing. This is how we get to know each other better as well, and love each other more as brothers and sisters. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Samantha.
Thank you, Jeannie. Thank you, Samantha, for organizing those meetings. Thank you, Guy, for coordinating this one. And thank you, everyone, for participating and sharing and be my spiritual buddy so that I don't feel alone in that world. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gilles. Andre, Pio, Collins?
Well, just thank you, Guy, for putting this together. And again, also to Jeannie and Samantha for being the organizers of this series. It's just, I'm just caught with the whole idea of this gift we're given in the 21st century of being connected by this very thin filament that is the internet, that has allowed us literally to encompass the globe today with just 9 people, 10 people. So that's wonderful. I won't be able to be here next week, but I'll carry this forward and look forward to the next time I can be here.
Thank you, Andre, and thank you for being the voice. I don't know if you've seen the video Andre did with our friend from England. That's amazing.
Please don't embarrass me again. Okay?
No, what a video. Wow. Can you send us the link? It's whoever has it. It's what is the title again?
You can
with Gary Tong you did
YouTube,
that,
It's now I'm forgetting the more spheres of ascension, but it's not that exactly. I'll get it and post it quickly.
Okay, thank you.
By the way, for Gilles, if Gilles is, I don't know where David Glass is exactly in Connecticut, but if you wanted to meet up with a reader, I could arrange it. I'm sure he'd love to meet you.
Yeah, I've been once in a meeting, and I think they meet monthly. I haven't been in a while, so I don't know what's going on. But yes, please send me his contact.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Andre. Pio?
Well, dear, again, I thank you and everybody, Jeannie, Samantha, and thank you for sharing your energy. I'm totally vitalized now. So I'm going to have a good weekend and a productive day.
And you won't make a flat today. That's really good. Because you're gonna have self-mastery before you go to the shop.
I know.
Thank you. All right, Collins.
Thank you, Guy, for this session. I'm glad to be here if not anything at all, at least today I learned how to pronounce your name very well, Guy. I used to
that's
say,
good.
I used to say Guy Perron, you know, and it's good, actually good to see you. I remember during the UBIS time, we just test and just type in, but it's good to see your face. I was away for some time because I needed to go and get an additional qualification, but I just completed it this year, October, so I'll be back to much more Urantia Book activities, which I've already started, so perhaps we'll be seeing me more often. And I would like to participate in this this particular program, this session. I think it's happening next week, right?
It's every week until the 16th from same time frame. And then we'll take a break until the next year, and then we'll start again in 2018. So, and it's open to anyone who wants to join.
All right. I will do that.
Okay, at 12 o'clock New York time. Hey, Collins, I have a gift for you. I'm going to send you a link to a Facebook page we started 4 months ago. It's called Urantia Afrique. And we have 100,000 subscribers now. We went from 200 to 100,000 in 4 months. So I'll send it to you. It's a great place for you. And we'll see if we can start a study group by targeting some okay. Eugene, you have anything to say?
Yeah, I really come here just to listen. I was asked by Belen to listen to it. And I come here also as a student. I really thank everyone for your words of knowledge and wisdom. And I am in gratitude for all the things that you imparted. I will really meditate on it and put into practice what I have learned. And maybe next time I can say a little bit more. Thank you very much for everyone.
Okay. Well, we expect a lot from Moses.
Moses is a student.
Yeah, okay. Moses, an eternal student. All right. Yes. So I hope that the session we had together convinced you that divine appointment. Don't leave home without them.
That's right.
Okay, God
bless you. Thank you for your service.
Everyone, you can
Thanks for being here, everyone.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Save the chat. Hold on.
Thank you. And saving it.